This week, Pier Dola, creator of Organic But Not Mental from Critiquing Comics 182, is back with the Corona Bible, a comic with great art that's uncomfortable to read for many reasons. Emmet and I critique it. But first, if you're enjoying this podcast, support the show at patreon.com/deconcomics for as little as $2 a month. With your pledge of at least $4 a month, you can access hours of bonus commercial-free podcasts, including more MCU talk and an issue-by-issue discussion of The Amazing Spider-Man by Lee and Ditko. Pledge your support now at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim.
This is Emmet.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Emmet out among the kangaroos and koalas in Australia. How are you?
That's the best introduction yet, Tim. Thank you. I'm good, thank you.
Are there any kangaroos or koalas near you?
Absolutely. I'm sure I mentioned this to you before, but yes, when I wake up in the morning and go outside, there's usually kangaroo poop all around my house. They come right up to our back door.
Wow.
In the middle of the night. We've been encouraged by the locals not to go near them. They can be quite aggressive.
Okay, yeah, no, I think maybe you did mention it before. Like, you have a fence around your house or something?
Yeah, and I was okay, just because we're going to be talking about a very graphic comic book. I might as well get graphic in my anecdotes. I've been collecting the poop. You know, I've been collecting the droppings for our compost. I was trying to add to our compost. You know, we're in the country, you know, and a neighbor then pointed out to me that kangaroo droppings are actually not very reactive. So it's not generating any sort of heat or decay or reaction with the actual compost. So I've been wasting my time picking up kangaroo poop for a couple of months.
It's not even worth poop.
It's not even worth it. Yeah, no.
And I know you mentioned giant spiders before.
Yes, always them. I also mentioned to you that I'm currently minding a little kitten that we adopted called Wanda. And Wanda is doing amazing work in keeping the house somewhat spider-free. I think her presence actually has intimidated a lot of the eight-legged kind.
Even though some of them might be bigger than her.
There are some that are quite big, and I think I think her scent maybe, or there's something about her I have not seen as many spiders, and when I do see them, they tend to vanish pretty quickly.
Huh.
So, yeah, Wanda's working out very well for us. You may hear her on this call, folks. I am the cliche, a man who does a podcast who has a kitten who will occasionally whine for attention. And this morning she's been very demanding, so we may get a contribution from a cat.
Okay. So we're talking this time about a comic which I guess is called Corona Bible. It's by, if I can pronounce it correctly, Pier Dola, who Malili and I talked about one of his other comics a few months ago. But he's fairly good at the self-promotion and sending out his stuff. But odd thing about this comic, though, I could not find his name on the comic anywhere, nor is there any like URL, and I searched Google, couldn't find any sign of him online. Wrote him an email about it. I haven't heard anything back yet.
Yeah, he's a man of mystery.
Yeah, basically.
Or other. I don't know. I don't know very little about him, this person.
Yeah. That's true. I don't know for a fact that it's a guy. It could be a girl or a woman. I don't know. It could be a space alien. You start to wonder when you look at his comics, because, I mean, he's a very good artist, but the work is so in your face. Yeah. It's, it doesn't hold anything back, and sometimes you kind of wish it would.
Yeah, I'm right now scrolling through 3 pages with a 9-panel grid featuring a number of people inserting various things into their orifices for sexual pleasure. And the narrator is saying to us, you can't believe the kind of things people put up there. I'm going, well, you're showing it all to me.
So now, this comic starts out as a kind of satirical and pretty cynical story about business leaders creating COVID-19 on purpose to kill off the underclass and to kill off the old people who are not regular customers of their products. And after a while, it just becomes kind of a long commentary on the state of the world. And it seems to just be the author commenting. At first, I thought it was a character, but no, it just seems to be the author's comment and kind of going into a lot of different topics. And it kind of comes back to COVID once in a while. And it goes on like that for 468 pages. And I made it to about page 83 and bailed out.
You sent this review PDF to me, and you said, "Oh, do you want to talk about this?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah," because I was just up for it. Let's do whatever we want, Even though I will confess, Tim, I've been somewhat loath to take part in critiquing comics because on a certain level, I kind of feel as if, well, I'm putting comic out there now myself. Like I've just published a comic. I've got boxes of it sitting in my study. I'm trying to offload now.
That makes you a comics artist. You got boxes of your work sitting around unsold.
Yeah.
Just ask Mulele.
Exactly. And so I'm aware that there's a certain peer group, and you don't want to necessarily take a crap on your peers. Although maybe that will come up in this comic. I don't know. So I've been avoiding this particular show of yours. It's somewhat hypocritical for me to be bouncing between I'm a critic, I'm an artist, I'm a critic, I'm a creator, And my line that I was trying to walk when you invited me to do this was, okay, well, I can provide some constructive commentary, or I can just provide my reactions, but not from the point of view of I'm the critic here. I'm saying I'm enthusiastic about comics. That's how I'm trying to approach it, right? And so I opened up the file straight away. It took a while to download.
It's a huge file. It's a huge PDF with all these graphics, 468 pages.
I opened it up, and immediately, I think I got almost as far as you, just because I was just, where is this going? And I'm dipping back in again now, but as we're talking, but where is this going? And I had this sense of, okay, so it's satire, okay, it's very broad, okay, there's some political conspiracy theory throwing in here. And I was very impressed with the art. Mm-hmm. I was very impressed with the style of art. But what made me uncomfortable, and I don't quite know how literal this is within the space of the comic, was you have imagery in it which I think could be seen as anti-Semitic. And I immediately, because I started reading it, and I was like going, oh, this is interesting. This is outre. This is something that I'm curious to see where this is going. But you literally have a character who says, well, I'm as a representative of the insurance companies and the banks behind this conspiracy. And then we find out that it's the what's the name of the family? It's the famous Jewish family that gets blamed for everything. What's his name? Rothschild. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's the Rothschild. So that's in the opening pages, right? So I think satire is a bit of a double-edged sword for a lot of people because you tend to show yourself quite a bit, and I've always defended satire as the weapon of the oppressed or the underclass against the elite or the established property owners in society, whatever. a lot of stuff that we get sold today, which is cold satire, is basically punching down on the weaker members of society by the very same people who would have been targets of satirical poets in Elizabethan England centuries ago. The very same people. And I have an issue with that. And here we have a story about this global conspiracy by the wealthy to infect the world. Mm-hmm. And you've got a representative of a Jewish family controlling the banking system. Immediately I'm shutting down. Like in reading this, immediately I'm going, what is this? Why do this?
I don't remember that mention of the Rothschilds.
It's he talks about himself as one of the Rothschilds, and then there's the I think when he's there he is. He's identified as M.A. Rothschild. Yeah, and that is what is that? That's page. I'm trying to see the display here. Anyway, it's when they actually have the release of the COVID virus in Wuhan. There's this splash page where you've got all the members of the conspiracy celebrating. You've got a Tom Hanks stand-in who seems to represent American interests, and you got this M.A. Rothschild.
Oh yeah, on page 13.
There you go. And you've got like your British interests represented by somebody who resembles Nigel Farage. I mean, Nigel Farage, Donald Trump, Forrest Gump. I'm not going, oh, yeah, go for it. Like, Farage looks like a cartoon. So like having him being in this satirical comic book is fair game. But yeah, this vampiric looking Nosferatu Rothschild. Mm-hmm. Oh, mate, like you've lost me. Like immediately, you've lost me. And yeah, it's very very unusual choice.
Yeah, well, what always kind of gets to me, and this comic is, it's not as true of this comic as it was of his other one, but that's that there's a lot of really unpleasant imagery. Monsters and people pooping and later on, like in page 80 something, Boris Johnson has the virus and he's in a hospital bed, and we just have to see the catheters stuck in him so that he could pee from the hospital bed. Like, I didn't really need to see that. More of our critique in a moment. Unlock classic early episodes of Deconstructing Comics and get access to hours of additional podcasts about MCU movies and the early Amazing Spider-Man issues by Lee and Ditko. Support this podcast and our other shows at patreon.com/deconcomics.
Welcome to the Superman Fan Podcast. My name is Billy Hogan, and I will be your host. Before we begin our journey through the time barrier, please ensure that your red indestructible capes are securely fastened around your necks so that we may all travel safely into the past to explore the Silver Age adventures of the Man of Steel in the pages of Action Comics, Superman, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane, and World's Finest Comics. After we return from our journey, I encourage you to go to the website, thesupermanfanpodcast.blogspot.com. I look forward to have you join me each week to explore the Silver Age adventures of the Man of Steel.
Sometimes the faces are almost like they're from photographs, but at the same time they can be pretty, kind of grotesque sometimes. And then you got the virus shown as this kind of monster with tentacles and a spiky head, and his top part, his head seems to separate completely at the jaw. at the jawline. So yeah, and the coloring can be really garish too. So it's the odd thing where even though the art is really good, it's kind of unpleasant to look at.
Yeah, which again is something I was immediately intrigued by, immediately interested in this notion of revulsion and hyper realized figures. And yes, there is a degree of photorealism here, but it's not flat photorealism. And I don't know if you've been on the Twitters this week, Tim, but there's a lot of pushback against a Alien comic that's been released by Marvel. There's a lot of chatter on the feeds I saw, and the artist is an artist I whose work I've liked in the past. So I wasn't aware that he had this pushback. I'll just say it's Salvador Larroca, and the issue is that the Larroca is using a lot of photo reference. And this Alien comic, and Alien, of course, being a cinematic property, there's lots of stuff for him to ref on, and people are annoyed because it's just like this flat. It just sits on the page. There's no. It's literally it's the Land. What's his name? Greg Land approach to photorealistic art, where it's just like you've just traced something and you just dropped it into a panel. I can tell which porn you're watching, Greg Land. That degree of just lifting lightboxing from an outside source. This person does not do that. This is caricature. This is, my immediate impression of him was, this person could be a great news contemporary magazine cartoonist, like a weekly strip where they would take an event from the news and render it in their own style. There's lots of politically left, politically right cartoonists out there. Like, there's plenty of room for somebody with a very specific political point of view who can do cartooning. And if not in the mainstream press, then in the zines or in the sort of anarchist cultures or whatever you want out there. There's plenty of room. I don't know why they're approaching this narrative in such a scattershot way, because it feels like a collection of one-page political cartoons stitched together. In incredible length and detail.
Yeah, I mean, the other work he sent us was very long also, and I felt like he could benefit by kind of being able to focus more and kind of edit himself down to a manageable length. Because I think his comics are just too long. Yeah, and like I said, I was immediately having this emotional response because of the use of Rothschild, and as you go on, yes, there's continued use of the swastika. There's continued depictions of like casual inhumanity, bound up with this notion of a conspiracy in society, and if that's his worldview, if that's how he sees the world, my only thing would be, I find it difficult to imagine, particularly with COVID, the idea that there's anyone in control of anything. Yeah.
What we have seen, I think this is an interesting theme, is that there are special interests in this world that are looking to take advantage of this to try and make some short-term profit. There are people who are saying, who are trying to get across a political worldview or trying to victimize entire racial groups in order to elevate their political ambition during COVID. That's happening. But any notion that there are people who are in control of this situation, which is clearly just a number of world leaders running away from responsibility from doing anything, like people are refusing to take control, if you like, and we're seeing a massive test of our democratic institutions as a result across the world. That is a fascinating thing, and this feels like a work of profound anger and frustration and I can sympathize, given the state a lot of people have been left in this last year. But I feel almost as if it's almost finger pointing at every other possible cause for what's going on,
rather than the actual one.
Yeah, rather than the fact that this little viroid has just turned our world upside down and we didn't come together to stop it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I'm trying to relate to this person. I'm trying to relate to their approach to this, but man, it's tough for me. I'm having trouble.
Yeah, well, I'm tempted to say that saying that it's a conspiracy by like Illuminati to wipe out people could almost be called kind of lazy, because it's kind of a failure of imagination or failure of realizing what the real target is. It's more incompetence than this kind of uber competence to control everything. We kind of want to say, if only people were actually in control of things, that power could be used for good. But yeah, the problem has been just, not taking responsibility for stuff. And, certain countries, obviously Australia has done much better than a lot of other countries. And I was just hearing that, if the U.S. had really taken control, we could have lost a lot fewer people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not sure that it's helpful to say that it's because of the Illuminati. I mean, I'm a little bit afraid that some people could take that seriously, and then it's just spreading a conspiracy theory that's not true.
Yeah. It's and it's, if it's exaggerated for comic effect, there needs to be, for the reader, some sense of where this is going. But again, because of this scattershot approach of just like, let's, there's this idea, there's this continued idea that we're being manipulated, we're being used, we're being destroyed, we're being, and there's no through line as to, okay, to what end, how, what does this mean? Everything is cynical, everything is hateful, and that's why I'm trying to see it as this could be singular, individual political cartoons, and I can see it that work.
Some pages have nothing to do with COVID, as far as I can tell.
Well, yeah, a lot of it's power. It's all about power. It's all about the abuse of power, and it's about the world leaders being in walking in step to this conspiracy in terms of abusing and helping the annihilation of the world. I find interesting, I don't know if you've noticed this, there's this, let's try to talk about the actual comic itself in terms of how he's approached it. There's these recurring motifs of a video cassette cover, which it's almost like a video nasty. Like an old video nasty cover with images from the story.
Aren't those like paperback books that are kind of left open,
it looks like,
face down?
It looks like the Canon logo from a video, and you got an age limit. You got R rated and 18s. I'm looking at one now, so maybe there's paperbacks as well in the mix.
But yeah, I guess it does say video on the spine.
Yeah.
But yeah, they looked like book covers. But yeah, I guess it's like a videotape cover that's been kind of cut open so that you can see the front and the back.
That's it. And I think you are maybe we're showing our age here now, Tim, that like we don't even recognize a VHS cover when we see one.
I'm not used to seeing them torn open like this.
Yeah, but it seems to suggest that it's like a chapter break. And it also seems to suggest that here is a bumper edition of the news about COVID and about I'm seeing lots of German language, like you got the Sein letzter Tag, your final day. So I'm wondering if this artist is German.
I think he's Polish, maybe.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, right.
He or she.
And that's an interesting visual signifier, the VHS cassette. It does seem to suggest, a sort of, I don't know, like a sort of, it's like Videodrome almost, like a sort of underground culture that's still using VHS tapes to share information and share experience of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like underground comics.
Yeah.
And I can see how it would fit in within that tradition. But again, it's just what's it all building to? Because I can take on like conspiracy stuff. Like I when I was younger, I think I had a nose for it, and I was sort of I was curious about like what's all this going on, and it's been kind of scary. You just mentioned people taking this seriously. It's been kind of scary in the last 10 years for me to see conspiracy theory move from something that you had to go looking for, to actually becoming a dominant narrative of our political, social reality. Mm-hmm. Everything from QAnon to COVID itself and how COVID was reported and the way people were refusing to acknowledge the dangers of COVID because Trump or someone said that, kids can't get it, right? Mm-hmm. Kids can't get it, which was a disastrous thing to say.
Yeah.
Because not only can children get COVID, they can also, whether or not they're symptomatic, they can carry it.
Mm-hmm.
So school openings and all the rest of it didn't help the UK, didn't help America. These issues with children exposing their relatives and possibly elderly relatives to disease. That's just one example of a piece of information that was a conspiracy theory, and that it's a reaction to an established view of truth, and then it gains currency, and then it sort of alters your political reality. COVID's a Chinese disease. You just kept saying China virus. Mm-hmm. And there, at the time of recording, we've just witnessed a series of horrible shootings in the States where the targets were mainly Asian women. Mm-hmm. And not only was the murderer in question sort of dismissively described as somebody who was having a bad day by the investigating police, the person who made that statement was later found to have been on Facebook. Was he selling T-shirts with a China virus logo on it? Mm-hmm. Am I right in that? That's
I believe that's right. Yeah, he was selling T-shirts that said China virus, something about China virus.
Right. So this isn't underground anymore. This is out there. Mm-hmm. This is on Facebook, right? So that's where this comic is odd to me, because it's like you're presenting like this, like underground comics tend to sort of give you something you can't get somewhere else, and it's that notion of being new trade, that notion of being outside the main paradigm, and it's so familiar to me because it's everywhere. It's on Facebook, it's on the evening news.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know that I have much more to say about this, although I just kind of flipped ahead here, and we've got a lot of pictures of a woman's naked butt around the 290s pages that I didn't really need to see either, but anyway, so yeah, that's Corona Bible. And if you would like us to talk about your comic, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we'll read at least 30 pages of it and critique it on the show. Me and whoever else it ends up being at the time, since Mulele is hunkering down working on his comics. So
this may have broken me.
Okay, well, thanks, Emmet, and till next time, this is Tim.
This is Ash.
And thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics. You can help Deconstructing Comics and all our podcasts by joining us on Patreon at patreon.com/deconcomics. And go to deconstructingcomics.com to connect to us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, to shop on Amazon to support the show, and to find links to subscribe to the podcast. Next week on Deconstructing Comics, Kumar and Jordan discuss Alan Moore and Gabriel Andrade's Crossed Plus 100. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics.